Hi everybody, it's me, Gregory Mannarino. How are you today? Alright my friends, what a week this has been, honestly. And I want to cover a few things here and really put a perspective on this um, because it's just too frightening to really understand this at its most basic level. So let's go over that here. So we understand that the Federal Reserve clearly believes that the United States economy is still in a full-on crisis mode, something I've been over in the last video, or two actually. And they, again, have made it crystal clear to the world that without their stimulus program, again, which consists of money printing, the likes of which we have never witnessed in the history of the world, the largest fiscal stimulus in the history of man. 5 years after the collapse of Lehman Brothers, the United States economy cannot even handle any type of a scaling back of this epic program that has created a financial monster and hyperinflated the debt market and distorted every other asset class to the point of ridiculousness. Now, we understand this is, without a doubt, the financial endgame. And I want to put a perspective on that. Specifically, this entire thing that we have here, this debt-based economic model based around a fiat monetary system, its basis at its core exists only because of the full faith and credit of the issuing economy. Here we're talking about the United States. So what is going on here is very, very ominous, and it's being talked about on the mainstream media, the financial channels, and you almost can't get away from it. And there is where this whole thing starts to come together. Investors globally, countries, traders, and anyone who understands this has to take away this understanding. Without trust in the system, it's over. The whole thing collapses. Now, people understand that the Federal Reserve, through their inaction or inability to act and their mixed messages, and we got one today, we're going to talk about that in a minute, is losing or has already lost all credibility. This is going to rattle the markets, in my opinion, especially right now because we are facing a debt ceiling. We're facing the funding of our government, and we have a president who I think has lost his mind. He came out and said this, and this is a quote: "Raising the debt ceiling doesn't mean we're increasing our debt." I want you to think about that. He said raising the debt ceiling doesn't mean we're increasing our debt. Obviously, the man has no conception of what that actually means. Maybe he doesn't understand numbers in its most basic form. That's very scary. Again, it goes back to the full faith of our government and the Federal Reserve, who is losing credibility here. So we even had James Bullard, one of the Fed presidents, today come out stating that there may be a taper next month. I want you to forget about that. I'm going back to my original statement, and I am not going to switch gears. The Federal Reserve cannot stop this. They've made it clear we are in full-on crisis mode. They couldn't even taper 1 billion. Nothing. They couldn't do anything. So this will continue in perpetuity. It's done now. This is the new norm. Understand, people, we have an economy where we are at 35-year lows with regard to the labor force participation. How are they going to collect taxes from jobs that either aren't there, people who are leaving the workforce? We're creating part-time jobs that are paying less. So who's going to make up the difference? I'll give you one guess. It's going to be the Federal Reserve, because no one wants our debt anymore. Okay, this is no secret. Just do the research on your own. Foreign holders of U.S. debt, China specifically, the largest holder of our debt, doesn't want anything to do with it anymore. What are they doing? They're hoarding gold. They're hoarding gold because they understand where this is all going. And I think they're putting themselves in a position to take full advantage of this all. And I'll tell you something else. I believe the reason why the Fed cannot or will not initiate any type of a scaling back of this this scheme that they're trying to pull off, I'm referring to quantitative easing, is because they won't allow the Chinese to take losses on their investments in bonds. That's really what I think is going on here. The Chinese will not take this lightly. It's very convoluted, and if you really think about it, very dastardly. You have to understand something else. When people talk about the debt, the 17 trillion that we already owe, most of that is held by the public, by you. It's in retirement funds and all kinds of other things. And this can never be paid back. So guess what's going to happen to all of that? It's going to evaporate. And anyone out there who's counting on some type of a government-funded retirement plan or something, you're dead in the water, because you're never going to get it. The landscape is about to change dramatically, my friends. And it's just very ugly. So what do we got here? Just to kind of put a perspective on this and sum it all up. I believe sincerely, because of the Federal Reserve's actions, that the full faith and credit of the United States is beginning to be questioned, not just by the American people or people like you who get it, but by the world. And that is going to change the landscape of everything. Understand, we already know this for a fact, people. Again, do a little research on your own. The US dollar has been losing its reserve status for a long time. Many countries now are engaging in bilateral trade in their own currency. So the US dollar is becoming irrelevant, despite the fact that the Federal Reserve keeps printing these bills literally like there's no tomorrow. You have to understand a basic concept in economics here. When an economy is slowing or at a standstill and there's no money velocity, which means that cash is not changing hands, it's not moving, it's not needed. So what generally would happen is the money supply should be contracted. What the Fed has done is expanded this. They've exploded this to the point of insanity, really. Let's define insanity here just real quick. Many people would say the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different outcome. Well, that's what's going on here. The Federal Reserve, they're not insane. They understand this is the end game, and this is why they need to keep printing and printing and printing and keep telling us that they're not hitting their target inflation rate, so they're going to print even more and devalue the currency and prop up everything until it absolutely melts down. People, I've been over the fact that this thing that we're in right now is absolutely inescapable. It's a screaming freight train coming right at you. Most people are going to be hit directly by that freight train. And in my opinion now, and it becomes more clear to me as I evaluate what's going on and think about it and ponder all this, the only way that you can save yourself from a financial standpoint is to get out of their game, people. Get out of their Ponzi scheme based economy and fiat monetary system. I am probably, without a doubt, one of the biggest advocates out here telling people to get into hard assets. You know that if you've been following this blog since day one. I've been talking about how important that is. And that's the only way you can save yourself in this environment, is by giving the Federal Reserve back their notes that they own. I urge all of you right now to pull a bill out of your pocket. It says Federal Reserve note or Federal Reserve system. It's not your bill. They own it. They own that bill, and it's owed back to them plus interest that they print out of thin air. I say give them back. Give them all back. Convert their fiat currency into real wealth, real assets, gold and silver more specifically. Actually, even more specifically, silver. Why? Because I've come out publicly hundreds upon hundreds of times stating that silver is the most undervalued asset in the history of the world. That's my opinion on it. But do your own research. Do your own research about this, people, and find out what I'm talking about. The reign of the U.S. dollar is over, and I know there are some out there that are going to have a little hissy fit about me saying that, and that's because you just don't get it, and I feel sorry for you. I really do. But again, if you want to hold those pieces of paper with numbers printed on them, be my guest, really. So people, become your own central bank. That has been my theme since day one, and I can't stress this enough, especially at this particular point. We are literally at the end game, and the Federal Reserve knows it. Our policymakers know it. President Obama is trying to pull some kind of a, I don't know what he's trying to pull, but by saying by increasing the debt limit, we're not increasing the debt. The man is either insane, deluded, or trying to manipulate thought process on people who are just as dumb as he is. And that's the truth. Either the man is fully cognizant of what is about to happen, and I believe that is the case, or he's the one of the dumbest people to ever grace the presidency of the United States. That may be true as well. I always give this man more credit than I think he deserves, but it's out of control. In collusion with the Federal Reserve, who understands, people, this is the financial endgame. And forget about Bullard coming out today stating that there may taper next month. There will be no taper, none. I will be betting against that. Next month and the month after that, I will be taking up opposite positions that the Federal Reserve is trying to tell us is coming, because it's not going to happen. There's no way. Zero. They cannot stop printing. They will increase printing. They will increase quantitative easing. The Federal Reserve understands that with any type of a taper, they will completely lose control of everything. And the bond market is number one. I've been over this so many times, almost since I started as well. There is going to be a moment that then, no matter what the Fed does, the bond market will do what it wants to, and that is to determine fair market value for these assets. And the suppression scheme with interest rates and everything else across the spectrum will correct to fair market value. And the real danger here, people, and this is what I want you to take away from this. Understand, people, a concept that I've gone over hundreds of times. We are now in the largest, by far, financial and economic global bubble the world has ever seen, and I'm referring to the debt. The one thing that you have to know, all of us have to know, and again, do research on your own if you don't believe me. Every single financial and economic bubble in history has burst. Why do they burst? Because they rise above a level which can be sustained by any means. By any means. So that means no matter what the Federal Reserve does, this bubble will burst. And when this bubble bursts, I have a whole chapter in my book, The Politics of Money, dedicated to this concept. When the debt bubble bursts, it's going to unleash horror upon the human race on par with a nuclear exchange, with regard to the loss of human life. That's a fact. Understand. And this concept is pretty profound. By borrowing monies from the future to live a better now, we've created an alternate universe, okay? A universe that would not exist if it weren't for borrowing these monies from the future. And the day of correction or reckoning is coming. When that debt bubble bursts, resources are going to become extremely scarce for people. Hyperinflation will envelop the world. And people will not be able to acquire basic things that they need to sustain their lives. Famine, social unrest and upheaval, disease is going to envelop the world. Now look, I'm not a religious guy. For those of you out there that know me, I don't buy into the whole thing, but I can tell you this: it's going to be biblical when the debt bubble bursts, and I think right now we are on that precipice. People, this is a long video. I'm gonna let this go and end it. If you think this is important, I'm urging you to please give me a thumbs up. I'm urging you to share this video and let people hear these concepts. Let them ponder these things. And for all of you out there that have been following me and follow this blog and understand what's going on, get ready for this. Keep preparing. And I'm urging you to become your own central bank, meaning get rid of your fiat paper wherever you live in the world. Get rid of it and start acquiring hard assets, gold and silver, more specifically silver, as much as you can possibly get your hands on at this moment. People, I won't see you until Monday. I hope all of you have a great weekend. I really do. That's it. We'll talk on Monday. Take care.